Good afternoon and welcome to the Thursday, April 15th meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. I'd like to remind all of us that we are in the traditional territories of the Sechelt and Squamish First Nations. We have an agenda before us with a fair number of items on it, including a delegation. Do we have any further changes, additions, subtractions, multiplications to our agenda? I am not seeing any excitement out there, so I would look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Yay, we have an agenda. That is the first step. Just while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to look for a motion to receive all minutes, reports, and communications. Move, seconded, all in favor? Yes. All right. Excellent. So I would like to invite our delegation to virtually step forward. Robin Marriott from the Sunshine Coast Federation of Community Associations regarding our goat trail.
Good afternoon. I assume you can all hear me okay. Thank you for this opportunity to present to this delegation. I'm actually here on behalf of the newly formed Sunshine Coast Federation of Community Associations. We represent communities and groups from Langdale right the way through to Egmont and on up to Powell River. The purpose of this new organisation is to create a stronger voice in local and regional development decisions that affect the quality of life for all Sunshine Coast communities. So I'm here this afternoon as transportation in all its forms, as represented here at this committee, is an integral part of life here on the coast. As a coastwide federation, we therefore see ourselves as a valuable contributor in decisions made on behalf of coast citizens. Having said that, one of the biggest failures and hindrances to real action is the lack of communication and public consultation. The recent corridor study presented to this committee, which I'm sure you all remember, highlights this very point. As was pointed out at the time, there was a real lack of communication between the ministry and local government on this study. Real action on improving life here on the coast depends on communication and also very much listening to other parties to achieve results. Our federation, drawing on experience throughout all coastal communities, can be an important part of this dialogue. So now I'd just like to take the time very briefly to make a few comments on the various issues facing this committee. Firstly, I'd like to talk about respect to our road infrastructure. We already have the recent corridor study, and now we have a promised bypass study in the works. Without going into details, it seemed to us that one of the greatest issues is the timeline used for these studies. The corridor study, if you remember, had 3 timelines, none of which seemed very conducive to actually getting the work done in a timely manner. Whilst we appreciate budgeting constraints, when they talk about 2035 and beyond, then you can't really take that seriously. For many of us, the chance of being around to care by that stage are probably not even going to happen. I don't know if I'll even be around. And so I've lost count of the times during I've had enthusiastic discussions around the new highway with residents and over the years, and had good discussion and talking about new highways and upgrading this highway. And at the end of the conversation, the comment usually comes out, but it's never going to happen in my lifetime. It's a very discouraging end to the conversation, and that's a perception which we need to change. We've had various studies over the years, not least the 2011 SCRD Integrated Transport Study and the 2009 C-Short Transportation Master Plan. Going back over them, once again, I've been reading them again, and it seems to me that very few, if any, of the recommendations were ever acted upon. Now we have a new ministry bypass study being planned. I've actually been in contact with Minister Fleming and Eleanor Farmer, the regional manager, about these studies, and emphasised the need for local input right from the planning stage. Local government and groups such as our federation need to be involved early, and we hope this committee will be proactive in pushing for this and achieving some real relevant input. Of course, the majority of the highway issues are on the southern end of the coast, but further up would also benefit from any improvements. Let us not forget there is always a need for maintenance and improvements to the road system throughout the whole length of the Sunshine Coast. Secondly, I'd like just to take a moment to talk about, address concerns of cyclists and pedestrians on the coast. Just quoting from the new 2021 Sunshine Coast Guide, as the tourist guide has just come out. And there's a section which says, road cyclists will be challenged and amazed by 70 kilometres of Highway 101. I would imagine the most challenging part is actually surviving the ride safely. It's not a road I'd like to cycle. It's not a road built for cyclists, despite some attempts at widening the hard shoulder over the years. Judging from comments, it seems a challenge just to keep it swept of loose gravel and safe to ride on. Having said that, I know that TRAC do a great job of fighting for improvements, and note there have been some recent upgrades of the hard shoulder paving and the addition of bike lanes in Gibsons and Seashelt. It's good. The challenge for pedestrians is often with trying to safely cross the current highway in such residential areas as Elphinstone and Davis Bay. Safety should be our highest priority, and our federation feels there is much room for improvement. We all support the ideas of fitness, cycling, walking, the preservation of our environment. So let's work together to make it actually a reality. Thirdly, I'd like to just mention public transport, which is so vital to many coast residents. Expansion of our current routes is always desirable, especially as our population continues to grow. Lack of public transport north of Seashore, right up to Earls Cove and Egmont, is also of a concern for residents and tourists alike. And finally, fourthly, I'd like to mention the ferries, of course, which are a vital part of life on the coast for all of us. The FAC, Ferry Advisory Committee, does a good job of advocating with BC Ferries for a better service. And our federation obviously supports any improvements to access and our way of life here on the coast. So just in conclusion, let me say that this Sunshine Coast really is a truly awesome place for residents and visitors alike. It's a fantastic place to live. The challenge we see of this committee and all the interested groups is working together to ensure that we have the safe, effective infrastructure that this coast really deserves. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I'm going to follow up along the same lines of the policing committee earlier today, and we're going to use first names unless anyone is offended by not being addressed by their title. I'm going to ask folks, if you have questions for our delegation, please put up your hand. But if we're going to get into a broader discussion of next steps, I think we might put that under item 5, corridor review next steps, because yes, that would be more helpful. Otherwise, we could get stuck here on item 2 for a very long time. Thank you very much. Let's see, Darnelda.
Okay, Robin, I have heard of the Sunshine Coast Federation of Community Associations. Are you the chair or president or something? Or
no, Clint Budd. Clint Budd is our chair.
Okay, and I see him on here as well.
Yes.
All right, so we would contact you through him?
Yes, yeah. At the moment, you can. Well, we're still getting really set up, so you can actually direct things to Clint. His email is clint@clintbud.ca.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, hi. Thanks, Robin. The highway, has the group come up with like a ballpark figure of what the highway that is desirable would cost?
Not this group. I'm involved, as you probably know, with the Sunshine Coast Highway Society as well. So, but with that group, our estimate was about 300 million, I think, for a highway, for a bypass highway. That's from Langdale right the way through to Seashell.
300 million was an estimate.
Yeah, that's just an estimate.
Great. Thank you.
Hard to make an accurate one, of course.
Thank you. Darnelda.
I just wanted to address the ministry bypass study. Through other conversations and organizations and groups that we connect with, the bypass study is a requirement of the land transfer that's happening between the province and the Sechelt Nation. So it has to be done in order to facilitate some of the negotiations that are happening there. So we were surprised, you know, as you were, when it was brought up by the Ministry of Transportation when they presented to the district of Sechelt. But looking further on, that's where it came from. That's what's spurring it on. So at this point, I don't know, and I don't think they know what the scope of it is fully, and we need to be involved with them to make sure that that scope is what we need it to be. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, that was the point, that we all need to be involved at the early planning stage.
Yes, and I'll chime in my agreement there. As I wrote on my website, the bypass study answered a whole lot of questions that nobody asked and failed to answer the questions that people have been asking repeatedly for years around here. Andreas.
Thank you. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that more community consultation and between the ministry and the whole Sunshine Coast is needed. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I have a governance question regarding this federation. I'm just wondering, how does the voting work? How does the meeting work? How are there representatives that from each community association? Is each community association weighted equally, or is there some sort of per capita weighted vote?
No, but as far as I understand it, at this stage, we've only really begun set up, but every community association has an equal representation. We all have one person who represents that association or group. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
We will develop it more as we go along. I believe we're going to eventually have a website and Facebook and everything. So.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. There's probably nothing that you can say about our highway that we haven't already said here.
Exactly.
So I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, next up is receipt of the minutes of our last meeting. Would somebody care to move that? Moved, seconded. Any comments, business arising? If everybody's fine with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Great. Thank you. That passes. Next up, BC Ferries. Diana.
I sent out the traffic statistics for January and February. And of course, they posted March after I had to have this sent in. And it's interesting because the March ones, if you look at it, we suddenly jump from a negative number in comparison to last year to quite a large positive number. And so I would encourage people, if they're looking at those stats, and as we go forward, remember that those are in comparison to 2020 during COVID. And so, of course, March was kind of the start of canceling sailings and moving people not using the ferry. So I think it's probably going to be wiser to compare back to 2019 rather than 2020 as we go over the next few months. So I did look at March stats from 2019, and for vehicles, we're down about 9.82% in comparison this year to 2019. And for passengers, it's quite a bit higher. It's a negative 33%. So as you can see, there's not that much difference between March and 2019. So our traffic is building fairly quickly. But I will continue to do this, and I'll probably add another column so that we can compare back to 2019 so that it actually makes some sense.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a question that probably nobody can answer, but it seems to me like there may have been a permanent effect on the number of people commuting, foot passengers.
I think people are trying to commute by using vehicle rather than, I think a lot of people, instead of going up, are trying to take their vehicles so that they do stay more isolated. And then, of course, with COVID, people being able to stay on the coast. So that may change as the rules lessen, if they ever do. And I think it's just a guessing game at this point for anybody as to what we will go back to, what will become the norm.
That's certainly true. Does anybody have any BC Ferries related questions, comments, concerns? Well, we always have concerns, but new ones. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Always interesting to see the stats. Next item up is Highway 101 corridor review. Over to you, Alan.
Hey all. I guess I'm not super savvy on what I'm seeing in the screen here, but is Modi present today? Does anybody know? Okay. That's kind of unfortunate. I wonder if that's a point of process that we could send them a note that it would be good to have them here for these meetings. Anyway, I guess to state the obvious, the corridor review is the current planning document that we have for the Lower Sunshine Coast. And we'd love to see what the potential points of engagement are for the local governments and other stakeholders related to the especially short-term plans and also long-term plans. The recommendations state that they recommend active transportation be included in construction improvements, and that piece is not really detailed much. It just says that improvement should be made, but it's not really clear what that means. And that the updates are pretty slow to come, and when they do, it seems like they're a done deal when they arrive. And so it seems like we need to get a little bit ahead of the curve on some of this stuff. For example, you know, there, a lot of the turnings that are, or the left turn bays that are proposed, they could be maybe refuge for pedestrians, but we need to get in front of the design process to be able to provide that feedback. So I guess what we're wondering is, what is the process for TRAC, local governments, the public to get to be a part of the process? And we're hoping that the SCRD can make a formal request of Modi to formalize that level of communication in some way, so that if Modi's planning to make some changes, that the appropriate parties are notified in plenty of time, so that, you know, the SCRD board at the very least has is made aware of what's coming down the pipeline. So that's what I wanted to see on the table. Over and out.
Yes, a recommendation to go to the SCRD board would be perfectly in order. I have raised the question, well, informally so far with the board, but we have not been having regular meetings with our MLA, and that should probably change. Other jurisdictions, like I was talking to someone from Nanaimo, their regional district meets with their MLAs bi-monthly. And, you know, we have a lot of concerns here that require the support or intervention of senior government. So that would be really, really helpful. I see, anyone got their hand up there? David.
Thank you, Donna. Alan's concern, you know, we've, from the town of Gibsons, we've raised this complaint with Modi that, you know, they start doing work in the community and the first we know what's happening is the noise of the graders. So, you know, it is an issue, probably something that should, and I suspect is being addressed by Team Sunshine Coast. You know, I think we had a so-so relationship with Minister Trevina. You know, change in ministers, you know, might be a bit of a setback, but I think it's something that Team Sunshine Coast needs to address, not just the regional district, because we end up having work done in our community, and you know, we find out about it when the switchboard lights up because of noise complaints.
Right. Thank you. I have a question. We don't know who the caller is in our gallery. You were just...
I believe it's Anna from the BC Ferries.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. If it's BC Ferries, could we promote her to be a panelist? Thank you. Andreas.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little bit on Moti and keeping their cards close, and I think one of the reasons is because they usually work in a bit of a triage situation where they have plans and they intend to follow through with them, and then something happens and suddenly those plans suddenly need to change. But that doesn't mean that they can't at least give us a heads up that something's going to happen with, you know, at least a couple of weeks of notice. But yeah, just I guess something to note is that often the best laid plans get taken out by something like Whitaker Creek.
I'm going to have some comments on that later, but I will say that there are no plans as far as I can tell. There is no regional transportation planning taking place on the Sunshine Coast. So never mind best laid plans. Mark?
Thanks, Don. Yeah, thanks, Alan. And, you know, the Sunshine Coast is very, very lucky to have TRAC, right? It is one of the rare places that have an active transportation association such as yourself. So thank you, really. It is really important. As frustrating as it is still more than other places have. But I just wanted to kind of clarify on that ask about project notification. versus an annual planning cycle versus corridor input. So I'm just trying to sort of, there's a bunch of things you mentioned, like the communication from Modi to the residents. But could you just reframe what you were saying about what you're asking? Could you? I didn't. Could you do that, please?
Sure. If the chair allows it. So I guess both things, all three things. The first one that seems a little bit like madness was watching what was happening in Seashelt around both Seashelt and Modi planning to work in the same area, but not at the same time. That seems like a level of planning that should be part of a discussion between those governing bodies prior. The second thing is anything that's in the SCRD jurisdiction that's not within the town boundaries should have some kind of process that comes, I think, to the SCRD to say, we're planning on doing some road infrastructure in a certain, on a certain part of the highway. And we'd like to get your feedback on, this is what we plan to do. Or do you see any issues? Is there any other planned work? And if it's possible, if there could be community engagement and SCRD engagement on that. And then the last item is, at the very least, before work starts to take place, there should be some kind of communication so that the community is aware.
Mark, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so you're talking about efficiency of using dollars in some ways. You don't want to find commonality on projects and not waste money. That seems to be kind of, in part, efficiency seems to be what you're driving at.
Yeah, I guess efficiency in the sense that I don't want to see the same work done twice, but also that, there's certain improvements that Modi is planning, pedestrian crossings on the highway that I think with some public input could be even better than they've designed. The passing lane that comes into Gibson's. When does the community provide feedback on whether or not they think it's a super great idea or not? Those kind of details.
Thank you. Darnelda.
Thank you. I think I'm muted. Sorry, hang on. Turn that off. I think the recent meetings that we had at the SCRD and at the town of Gibson's or District Seashelt with regards to Modi are a first step. It's taken us a long time to get those meetings, and we have introduced our people to their people so that we can continue that dialogue. And that's something that at the elected level, we need to keep our eye on to make sure it still happens and make it go further. So I agree. I agree with everything you said. That's what our aim is too. And we'll do what we can at our level to make that happen. The issue that we have, as you know, is we don't have any jurisdiction over that. So we say, we need you to do this, but we can't make it happen. But we can be loud and very in the face of their superiors to make sure that we do whatever we can do. So we take your points to heart. Thank you.
I take the point too that we need to continue meetings between our Modi region and staff and local government. But I see that there are larger issues here. Modi has no requirement to consult anybody in rural areas of this province. And that's a problem, in my view. That is a really big problem. We are fighting these issues one stop sign and one intersection at a time across the province. And I think we need to organize a broader approach to ask for changes to how Modi does business and how particularly residents of rural areas, because of course all of our roads are Modi, how we are consulted and included. And I have so many issues, but one of them is that we need to be planning around climate change and what roads are maintainable in the face of climate change. And none of that's happening. Like Davis Bay, I've said this before, the highway is flooding at Davis Bay and already. And, you know, it's only going to get worse. And there's absolutely nothing. We're being handed turning lanes. So I think that it would be appropriate for Team Sunshine Coast to start by taking this to AVICC. I have heard rumors that AVICC is looking at taking a more active advocacy role in provincial issues. And that, I think, is the way to go, because if we can share resources between, you know, local governments, then we can look at a broader picture and bring more attention to bear, more resources and attention to bear on the issues. We're not alone. I talked to the rural director for Denman Island, and the Modi budget for his island is $17,000 a year, which doesn't even brush the sides of the roads. So it is a larger conversation. We are not the only people suffering from chronic neglect of our road system. I'm still sort of kind of hoping for a recommendation to float out of the group. Darnelda, your hand is still up. Are you up again? Okay. By the end of this meeting, it would be cool if somebody could dream up a great recommendation. I'm going to move on, though, to item 6, which is an excerpt of transportation-related items from the Q1 transportation report at the SCRD. And I call your attention to the kind of dismal graph on page 9, where we see just how low the transit ridership has been in the first part of this year. And I'm going to ask staff if there are any comments or anything that you would like to make about the material.
More than happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay. Boy, this is a quiet group today. Yeah, I'm going to mention that I attended the meeting with BC Transit and the seniors planning table around Handy Dart review. That was a really good meeting, very helpful. So there is a committee being set up, the, I believe, Custom Transit Committee, to look at making some recommendations about how we might improve Handy Dart service on the Sunshine Coast. So that's a nice step in the right direction. It also, you know, identified a number of the challenges that we have here, which most of us already know, but that's good to hear. Another thing that I noticed in that meeting that I thought was really interesting, somebody mentioned the Highway 17, I think, project that was in northern BC, along the corridor where so many people, Highway 16, sorry, where so many women particularly have disappeared or died. And BC Transit has partnered with a lot of municipalities and regional districts along that corridor to create a regional transportation service, which is something that we may want to look at because there is no transportation service now between Powell River and Vancouver. And that is a problem that has been identified by Cathet Regional District and the city of Powell River, and it's a priority for them. I don't know exactly how we address it, but I think we should be exploring what we might do. I see Mark's hand is up.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. You invited some questions of staff. So I think it would be helpful just for staff to let people know that June we're going to 100%, and that curve should start to go up in the ridership. And Paul probably knows that people are coming here and they want to travel by bus. So ideally, that curve should be swinging up by June. We should be going up. And BC Transit is trying to rebuild its ridership. So everything indicates that we're trying to restore the ridership by service levels, promotion, and getting ready for a tour season. Like, so the expectation is that that curve is going to go up. That's my expectation. So any comments from staff we're going up.
Thank you. Thank you for your enthusiasm, Director. I really appreciate. Yes, I could have said, okay, the board earlier this year made a decision that by the end of end of June, we're now operating at about 80% of our pre-pandemic capacity in terms of number of hours. By the end of June, we're going back to 100%, and that would allow for that's one of the requirements I put out. That's one of the requirements for the Safe Restart funds, specifically for transit, that the SRD received, and that also is intended to encourage further ridership increase. And the timing of the end of June is chosen because then BC Ferries will change their schedule again to the summer schedule, and then indeed we hope that and it will, of course, all depend on where we are at that point in time in terms of the pandemic. If people are indeed traveling, taking the ferry and doing it as a food passenger versus as a car passenger. And that will be the big question mark, because as Diane just indicated, a lot of commuters currently are taking the car. And if residents, tourists are continuing to do that, there might be an uptick in ferry traffic, but that might not be represent itself in number of transit riders. We'll have to see.
Great. Thank you very much. David.
Thank you, Donna. Further to what you were saying with respect to a transportation link between Powell River and Vancouver, back in the day when I think it was originally Grey Coach and then it became Malaspina Coach Lines, when that bus service existed, one of the things that was really great about it is that BC Ferries honored those buses. So, a blizzard in the middle of December, the ferry waited till that bus got to Horseshoe Bay. So people knew that they had a guaranteed means of transportation. And I think, as, a community, as a regional, district, and I mean regional district right through the Sunshine Coast is, and considering the condition of the highway, one bus carrying 40 people is a lot better than 40 vehicles at the best of times. So if we could do something to, A, find a carrier that might be willing to look at it, and B, go green as opposed to the loser limo concept of public transit, I think we could make some great inroads and, maybe take some pressure off the highway and take some pressure off the ferry terminals.
Good. Thank you. I think we have gotten through that item. We have 2 communications. Does anybody have anything they want to say about pilot cars or about a new highway? Well, please don't say everything about a new highway, or we'll never get to the round table. But I'm not seeing any waving hands, virtual or otherwise. Okay. Now, there's a way to lock the view on this so that folks don't start keep moving around, isn't there? Okay.
If you find it, let me know.
Oh, all right. Sure. Be encouraging. All right, so we should go to the roundtable next, and I am going to take things in an order that, well, David has his hand up, so he gets to go first.
Will teach me not to lower my hand. You know, it's interesting, you know, the situation with Modi and dealing with Modi. So I think you know, we do need to get Team Sunshine Coast fired up. You know, obviously, perhaps get to get the new Minister of Transportation and Highways on her Christmas card list, and see what we can get fired up. But do it as a district, and include Cathet in it, because you know, there's no sense building a super highway to Egmont and it all unravels there. You know, it's really difficult. I really appreciate the you know, the work that Track is doing, and you look at European cities and even other provinces where, you know, there's a decommissioned rail line that can become a transportation corridor for pedestrians and cyclists. You know, sadly, it's something we don't have the option of sort of dialing in on the coast. But it's I would certainly support any movement to get Team Sunshine Coast engaged with highways, and it's not just the transportation aspect of it. The other thing is these highways are potentially going to be in communities' groundwater recharge areas. So, you know, we can't just sort of say, great, let's build a 4-lane highway from Langdale to Seasheld and, you know, compromise, you know, other assets on the coast like drinking water. So we need to get the ministries together. They have this notorious reputation of operating in silos, which they've admitted openly to us in previous conversations. So, yeah, let's, you know, hopefully we can have something on the table that we can get together and deal with, and get our MLA into it as well.
Okay, thank you, Town of Gibsons. Alton, you're up next.
Thank you, Chair. I actually don't have a lot to report or to say. I'll pass along that Chair Pratt's being put on notice here to expand our Christmas card list. But one thing I did want to suggest, Chair, is the participants list does order itself when people raise their hand based on who raises their hands first. So if you get everybody to raise their hands, you'll have a speakers list automatically built for you that you can just chew your way through. Yeah, don't really have anything to report or comment on. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Mark, you were the next one.
Thanks, Donnie. Yeah, my report is on the, I've been riding the section between the newly paved section between Stewart Road and Reed Road. It's part of my COVID exercise regime is to ride this section, and the new pavement is great, and the shoulders are wider, particularly through Gibsons Creek, and I almost feel like a respected road user when I don't have to be riding on the curb all the time. So you got about 1.5 meters both ways, which is great, and there is a certain feeling of security. You know, the speed is still an issue, but one of the things is now you have 1.5 meters of shoulder that accumulates debris. So you end up with 1.5 meters, but the debris accumulates on the inside half meter, so you start shifting out. So, you know, the hardware is there, but the maintenance, I think, you know, will follow. But it is a dramatic improvement in terms of, you know, I'm a seasoned road rider, lots of traffic, Sunshine Coast lots, but it does make a dramatic difference in the comfort, being able to nudge off away and following that corridor on the North Road section through Gibsons. It is a little odd, the lines, you know, you have the wide lines with the zebras in between. and I'm told that that means something. It's not particularly clear to me exactly what it means. But it is an improvement. And so I got to say thanks for the widening of the road, and it makes my little section feel more comfortable. I'm not talking about going further up the coast, but in my little section, yeah, it was an improvement. But the maintenance is still a scary part. I got mountain bike tires on there. If I had street tires on there, and the gravel and debris, it looks great, but riding in the weeds is still, if it's paved, you still got to do the maintenance. So that's a comment in terms of my piece from Area F. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Andreas.
Thank you. And yeah, I just wanted to, I've let folks know in my newsletter, and if you've been part of the board discussions, you probably know that I've added a little blurb on my website in my FAQ section that's called "Why We May Not Need a New Highway." Have a look at it. You know, I think it's just some thoughts around it. Of course, I'm approaching all this with an open mind, but I do, and I applaud the efforts of everybody to get more community consultation going, which is exactly what we need. But there's also some comments that I've shared with Moti there about the corridor review. So if you're interested in my views, you can go and check out that article. Thanks.
Thank you. Diana, you're up.
I have a question, and Mark alluded to the widening of the highway and on the shoulders, but they have not returned the fog lines. And as drivers, that makes that road even more challenging, especially at night with no lights and on curves and corners. Is there any indication from anybody as to if they're going to replace those lines in our lifetimes? Because it's dangerous.
Yeah, perhaps an email to Colin asking when we're going to get lined. It's kind of sad we should have to ask for lines, but anything else from you? Okay, thank you very much. Darnelda, you're next.
Okay, a couple things. I did see, I was looking for it here, but I did see that the commuter bus that goes to the ferry at Rose Cove actually got some federal funding, and that transit funding that was announced recently. I can't find it. I will look for that information, and I can forward it out. I can send it to you, Donna, maybe you can send it out to everybody. District of Sechelt, we're working on budget. So yesterday we had our committee of the whole. Hasn't gone to council yet for ratification, but in the budget, we have money for updating our transportation master plan for the District of Sechelt. So we have the one from 2009. When council asked, staff said, you know, we've got development happening right now in the district. And when they come forward, if we have the transportation master plan done, we know what to ask them for. Because ours is from 2009, like it's outdated. So that is if our budget passes as we're anticipating now, that will be in to be updated. Wharf Avenue, as you know, is looking to be updated. And we did at the meeting with Moti have them indicate that they would be talking with our staff of what that looked like, because they were looking at potentially 2 turning lanes at the corner in the plan that they just came out with. And we want to make sure that, just like, Alan said, if we're going ahead and doing this, we don't want them to have to come back in 5 years is where it's in the plan to rip it all up and redo it. If we're doing it now, let's get together and make sure we do it right. So that's in place. Trail Avenue has started again. It's moving up. We do have grants in for a complete circle loop. So it would start at Trail in Torito, go up by Kinnickinnick School, Kinnickinnick Park, go as a bike trail or path over to Mason and then all the way down to the highway, with on Mason itself actually having bike paths and separated bike paths on it. So that grant application is in for that, and that would then give us the foundation basically to start expanding the rest of the transportation network that we're looking for. When we first started doing the Trail Avenue piece, particularly around Cowrie, we were getting a lot of pushback from community members. We were getting emails, every day, Alton? It's like you're getting saying, oh, it's too narrow and it's, we're having to go too slow and everything else. That's the point. We're looking for bikes and pedestrians to actually have, access. I haven't seen an email now for probably a couple of weeks. So I think everybody's realized they have to slow down. If they slow down, they're not going to run over the curb. So we'll see what happens with the rest. I think that's all I got. Things are moving forward. Exciting.
Thank you. I just had one question. Is the Seashell transportation plan, is it coherent with the 2011 SCRD transportation plan? Did they sort of?
Well, they don't. I mean, the piece where it's just the highway, right? That's it. So in Seashell itself, I mean, there's nothing for it to connect with except the highway.
Except the highway.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Next up is Alan.
Okay, so I think it's great to hear that staff at various levels are communicating with Modi, but I still have a question about what the process for the public, track, local governments is to provide feedback to for the corridor review, and whether the SCRD has a role to play in it. So, we have some feedback for it. We're wondering, what do we deal directly with Modi and make suggestions, or is the SCRD a part of this story? So that's my sort of finishing up the previous point.
Okay. Anything else from track? You guys are active.
Yes. So, yeah. I think there's a lot of great things happening right now. Modi reached out to us recently, Urban Systems and Modi. Urban Systems is the company that built the BC Active Transportation Plan. They're doing a review of active transportation gaps throughout Metro Vancouver and the Sunshine Coast. And they reached out to us to ask us to be an advocacy group in that context. I assume that the SCRD has been communicated with as well. The town of Gibson's recently received sizable funding for missing active transportation. Maybe that's what David's got his hand up for now that I see it. I'll let him speak to that. And the other, so I don't know if there's any action on how we should submit information to the corridor review or not, but I would like to see the SCRD play some kind of role in that. Last point is, I just wonder if there's any update on the gas taxes. And that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you. Darnell, do you still have your hand up? Were you wanting to follow up?
I'm interested in that gas tax piece too.
Yes. And I'm not sure where we are with gas tax, other than I remember seeing that the problem, or whoever's in charge is going to put a limit on how long we can sit on funding. UBCM, yeah. Does staff have any comments on gas tax?
I can see that, oh, sorry. If there's a dog barking in the background, that's mine, and I apologize in advance. I can say that in terms of the draft MOU that had been done between Modi and the Sunshine Coast Regional District. That has been updated, shared with Elena Farmer at Modi. They're feeling that it's ready to sign from their perspective. We're prepared to bring it to the board for consideration for signature, and it just needs to be reviewed by UBCM to confirm that in fact the gas tax funding is eligible to be used for the purposes that the MOU envisions. In addition, UBCM is getting ready for potentially some education around the next phase of gas tax funding, including the highest and best use of gas taxes and the sort of the saving it versus spending it philosophies that different people employ.
Okay. Do we have a rough ETA on when we'll get that endless MOU actually signed?
It'll probably be coming to a committee meeting in the near future.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. David, did you have another comment? And then I'll go to Sue.
Just very quickly, and to follow up on what Alan alluded to, the town of Gibsons did receive a grant, a fairly decent grant. It was over $600,000, and what it's for is completing some of the gaps in the active transportation plan that is on the town website. And further to that, the Gibsons Way and North Fletcher bike route is happening as we speak. I've periodically been having to hit mute here because there are actually construction vehicles operating outside my window. So North Fletcher is going to be reconfigured over a period of 6 to 8 weeks. So it becomes meandering, deliberately to slow traffic down. There will be a bike lane. Street parking is being curtailed to parking pockets. So we'll see how it goes. But at least from a cyclist point of view, coming down School Hill or Highway 101, there will be a little more safe area to operate in. And then with some of the new construction that's going on in town with the Venture Way, with the new development that's going in there, Parkland is being connected through bike routes and one thing and another to sort of connect some of the dots. So it's a great grant that we've received and overdue.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for Sue next.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that the School District 46 is we continue to work on our transportation review at the operations committee meetings, and I would actually encourage anyone who is interested in that process to go to the school district website and see the information over the past few months for sure. We did a transportation survey with families in January and got some good feedback. And so that's a process that continues, and we've got options, and consideration will be given to the feedback and responses that we got from the families in the development of anything that we do, regarding our students. And our Secretary Treasurer, Nick Westwick, has done a really tremendous job there's lots of graphs and charts and good info to read through. So we're involved in that. And of course, the active travel, which we alluded to at the policing and public safety meeting. So we can improve help develop some innovative ways to improve our kids traveling to and from school, which of course is really difficult right now with COVID-19. But as we spoke to, there's definitely some innovative ways that the schools are dealing with getting our kids there, other than, like we spoke of at previous meetings, transportation meetings, of kids in cars, one chauffeur driver and driving, and trying to reduce the amount of traffic for kids and helping to create ways to get them safely And that's I think the key, really the key word is safely to and from school, because the numbers and the remarks and the percentage clearly shows that, 70 to 75% of kids want to be independently getting themselves to school and riding bikes and cycling and whatever, skating, whatever method. They really do want to be doing that. So it's not that our kids are inactive by choice, really, but by other circumstances. So all of these things are going on right now, and I downloaded all the. I'm not on the operations committee, but I do try to attend as many as possible just to get. It's a great committee for information, and they're really working towards some great options for our kids. When that button gets pressed and we're actually back out there again and working in a more normal environment again. We need to have these things in place so that our transportation issues, including school buses and all of those things for our kids, and the kids getting safely to and from school, the speed issue, everything. So that's where we're at right now. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to ask Sunshine Coast Tourism, we'll come back to that, Darnell, because Paul has to go. But what should we expect this summer?
It's Groundhog Year with better ferry service. We're going to get, there's pent-up travel demand. We're going to see a very busy summer. Obviously, BC Ferries is responding with their new pilot project and more robust service. So that's what we're preparing for. On the marketing side, we're all frozen right now, as you can imagine. So it's mostly the More Coast Love campaign to encourage people to support their local businesses. And that's where we're at this point in time. But there's lots of hopefully infrastructure upgrades coming through with the grant money that will help improve our communities and improve our active transportation. So I'm excited about that. That's all I can say at this point. But thanks, everybody. I really got to run. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Darnelda, did you have a question for Sue?
I did. So I know that the catchment area for West Sechelt Elementary is really small. And there was a project that was being looked at last year to look at how, what are the paths that kids can use to get to school. And I know our staff was working with the school district on that. Is that still moving forward? Do you know where that's at? Given all the stuff that happened, I just wondered if that's something that we need to put back on staff's radar or not.
And that's a really good question, and I don't particularly know that case, but I would assume that it is. But I think it's always a good idea to revisit that and just put the energy and the information out there to look for the answers that you're seeking on that, because it's West Sechelt is going through. You said West Sechelt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's going through some transition right now with the renovations and a lot of work right now. So I mean, that's might be something that's just not on the forefront right now. So I think it's a good idea to see with that catchment the role in them getting they're actively getting to and from school. So what does that look like, and is that on the table?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll ask staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Andreas.
Yeah, through you were asking for some wonderful motion, and through a combined effort of maybe Alan and myself, we've tried to put one in the chat. Recommendation that the SCRD board write a letter to MOTI to increase communication and consultation with local stakeholders regarding local projects and their timing, and that a thorough consultation be conducted regarding the bypass study currently underway that includes all local governments and local stakeholders. And then maybe add the SCRD receive formal notification for all major projects at the pre-planning and pre-implementation stage.
Wonderful. Tracy, are you able to pull that all out of the chat?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a seconder? Yay. Do we have any further discussion? Darnelda?
Can we ensure it's copied to, so it goes to Ministry of Transport, but also copied to all the various, you know, Lana Farmer and Michael Braun and, you know, all the people who actually have to do the consultation piece? And maybe their bosses, Ashtok or whatever the guy's name is too?
Sure, but we could, when this comes forward to the SCRD as a recommendation, I think we can add some more detail. David?
Thank you, Donna. And thank you, Ellen and Andreas for the draft. Because I was racking my brain here because we had a staff or a council meeting where Modi did attend. And one of the recommendations that came out of it was sort of very much what has just been drafted here, with the recommendation it be sent to the regional district, the District of Sechelt, and the Sechelt First Nation. So somewhere lurking is a similar motion which involves all the levels of government on the coast.
Great. So we're all on the same page, I think. Seeing no further hands raised, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Awesome. That passes. So we are, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. It's the phrase, our people are talking to your people are talking to your people. So does DOS and TOG and SCRD all talk to the same Modi people? And does all of our local government staff talk together before they talk to Modi? Like, are we got our house in order in terms of coordinating at local government? No, okay. So DOS is talking to a different group, and TOG is talking to a different group, and SCRD is talking to different Modi silos. Is that what's happening?
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say we're talking to the same people, but I don't know if our people are talking amongst ourselves at the elected level, at the community level, right? I don't know if that's happening, so that our staff are also presenting a unified voice to Modi. I don't know. I mean, that would, we'd have to ask staff here if they're actually talking to our staff about that. I don't know.
Yes, we should get ourselves on the same page. That's quite true. All right. I don't know.
Remco actually unmuted himself there for a second. He could probably tell us.
Your eyes are too good. I think there's an opportunity to improve the communication at the staff level. I think it also depends on, okay, what are the angles we're looking at? Are we looking from a transit perspective, from an active transportation perspective? What are the angles? But yes, I think there's opportunities for improvement. I think but I think it's not a willingness to collaborate, but I think there are other questions. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. My last word on all this, I've been looking at culverts. And basically, we have not had any significant maintenance done on our roads and culverts for 30 years. And it's coming home to roost now because these things are starting to fail. And, you know, government cut back and cut back and cut back. And I don't blame Modi for wanting to avoid us because they are not adequately resourced to do a decent job on our roads. So we are going to have to continue to go after senior government to make the changes we need so that something can happen. So thanks everybody for attending. Do I see any motions to adjourn? Oh, it's moved and seconded. All in favor? Awesome. Thanks so much, folks. There is nobody in the gallery. Our one phone-in person died of exhaustion. So we're good to go. Lovely afternoon. Thanks for coming. Let's do it again in 3 months.
Thank you. So long.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Donna. Take care, everyone.